9:16 here on the morning show with Jeff and Will on AM 1700 WRCR Haverstraw, WRCR.com. Welcome in, everybody. And Tina Traster, the executive editor of RCBizJournal.com, joining us now on the Newsmaker line. Good morning, Tina.
Good morning, all. Another gorgeous day.
It is indeed.
So I am going to talk today, the topic of today is civic engagement. And I'm going to talk about that in various ways. So to begin, I want to let everybody know that our second Meet the Editor coffee at Roasted, R-O-A-S-T ' in Nanuet, really cool coffee shop, will be this Wednesday at 8:30. Come down, fill my ears, let me know what's on your mind. We had one of these last month. It was successful. It resulted in a couple of stories and some contacts and some ongoing conversations. So these things are really important.
How long are you usually there? But you're starting at 8:30. How long do you think you'll be there?
Well, we ended up there till about 10 last time because we had about a dozen people and it was a really stimulating conversation. So, you know, as long as people are there, I'll give them the time.
All right, very good.
So come on down and let's keep the issues out front in Rockland County. In the same vein, we have just launched a new column called Your Voices, which we will intend to run about once a month or so, unless we see that we get a lot of good stuff. Maybe we'll up the frequency. That remains to be seen. But our launch column was by Laura Biden of Clarkstown, who was writing about the Rockland Country Day School campus. This is for those who don't know the backstory here, this is a piece of the Rockland Country Day School obviously operated for many decades. And then several years ago, the town of Clarkstown bought that site. In 2018, Clarkstown bought that site for $4.4 million. It has sat fallow, and just recently the town hired Michael Shillelagh, the architect, to do a feasibility study to look at the buildings that exist and what kind of development would be feasible on site. And in Laura Biden's piece, which we put up last night, she discusses her wish for that site to remain open space, and she shares some memories of her. I think it was her son attending that school, and just talks in general about what she believed was communicated when the town purchased that site, and it's a well-reasoned essay. It's an opinion. We understand that it's her opinion. She's also affiliated with the Coupon Group of Clarkstown. So what we're looking for, and again, what I said is the theme of today's conversation, is discussion, is civilized, well-reasoned, polite, interesting conversation where we can look at an issue and have a discourse over it, without it devolving the way so much of dialogue in America does now. So we're trying to turn that around and return to a time where we can all look at an issue and try to have a conversation about it. That's going to be the point of this column. Also, on the topic of civic engagement, we ran a couple of stories over the last week or so, and I noticed just how much buzz there was about each of these, and it tells me something. The first was a story called Man on a Mission, and this is about a Nyack resident named James Sklar, who is trying to essentially ban pesticides in Nyack. And what the uphill climb that he has is he would first need to change the state law, because it is the state that regulates the use of pesticides in any community throughout the state, except the exception to that is a town or a county can determine its own policies on pesticide use, but commercial users and residents, that falls to the state. So he's been circulating a petition. He's trying to really get some momentum going to ask one of our legislators, potentially Bill Weber or Ken Zabrowski, to try to sponsor a bill that would amend New York state law to enable local jurisdictions and municipalities to have control over pesticide use in their communities. It's a tall ask. It's a big effort. It has been. We write in the story that something like this has gone on in the state of Maine, and I believe in Maryland too, where the power of how this is legislated is been handed over to more local jurisdictions and municipalities. Either way, what he is doing with this petition and why we're talking about civic engagement today is that he is, bringing awareness to the spread of toxicity that pesticides create for both people and animals and any living creature that's out there, and even native plants that end up basically falling prey to pesticides and then lead the way for invasive plants. So big mission. We reached out to both Zabrowski and Weber's people, and they say they're looking at this request, and we'll stay on top of this and see where they get to on this. But if anyone's interested, you can look at the story, and there's a petition there if you feel moved, or if you have a voice on this, and even if it runs counter and you have a well-reasoned argument, the whole point is let's engage one way or the other. Let's just engage. Let's hash out our opinions. Let's see if we can have a reasonable conversation, because that is what is so desperately needed. And any questions so far?
No. It sounds like he's got an uphill climb, but kudos for him for trying.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's sort of a lifelong environmentalist. He's been plugged into organic eating and this sort of thing. And I think what we have to get around is, it's about education, really. I mean, we're a culture where we value that aesthetic of the perfect green lawn, and that's all good and well. But it's kind of a what lies beneath. I mean, anybody who is walking their dog needs to be thinking about what that dog is eating, sniffing, or absorbing on its paws and bringing into the house. So it's an entire ecosystem. We're very conscious of trying to, have a sort of a perfect lawn. But I guess the question is, as he's looking at it, at what cost? So that's that one. And then finally, I was going to mention another story that just got so much attention and engagement and buzz, so it must be something people are interested in. We did a profile on a local entrepreneur who owns a car dealership also in Nyack, who has landed, he's one of two Rockland County, actually he's a resident of Orange County, but he's got a business here in Rockland and he's from Rockland, and he's landed a license for a cannabis retail dispensary. And the really interesting thing, I think, about the story that we put out on him is he was so forthcoming and honest about his life story and the trouble that he got into when he was in his 20s, dealing marijuana, and the time that he spent in prison, and how he turned his life around. He's made a career out of selling used and new cars. This is Seth Marks that we're talking about. Many apparently know who he is. And now he, like I said, he's landed a license for cannabis retail dispensary. He can open this anywhere in the Hudson Valley, but he said that he's really hoping that it's going to be in Nyack. I might remind our audience that back in, 2020, the end of 2021, most of Rockland County's towns, I think all except maybe Haverstraw, opted out of the cannabis retail dispensary option. And so the places in this county where a dispensary can go are limited to a handful of towns, villages, and Nyack, Piermont are two to mention, as is the village of Haverstraw. But Seth Marks is hoping to be able to open a dispensary in Nyack. When Nyack opted in, or rather didn't opt out, they looked at their zoning code and they looked at where such a facility would be permissible, which I think was a productive exercise in being able to say, we can welcome this into our community, but with certain restrictions or certain, parameters. And so there are certain, zoning codes that will go along with this. But that being said, that is his first choice is to try to get this going in Nyack. And, it really does represent the beginning of a new industry, one that is really taking off in other places, one that will become competitive around the Hudson Valley. And so Seth Marks' story, I think, was, I think it was kind of riveting, because he, this provision that these licenses, in the first place go to somebody who's had a prior offense. Some people can get their head around this. Other people kind of grouse about it. But I think what this story does achieve is it really humanizes just one man's journey around this, and in a sense, it's like a full circle, but it's an interesting full circle, I guess, to go from being in his 20s and all of those mistakes, and then rebuilding his life, having a business, owning a commercial building, and then coming back to this, but in a whole, obviously, different and legal way. It's just interesting human interest story.
It will be interesting to see where he gets the place up and running, and when that actually takes place. Tina, thank you so much for joining us. As always, we will talk to you again next week. If you want more information about rcbizjournal.com, you just go to the website, rcbizjournal.com, sign up for a newsletter, and Wednesday is at Roasted in Nanuet. You can meet the editor at 8:30.
Thank you. Have a great week.
Thanks, Tina. You